partly because this is a case study that we used in the class, and the presentation that I'm making is actually made by the students. We just modified a little bit for the so we wanted to just show you what kind of presentation that students come up with after reading the case studies, debating among themselves as a group. And quickly I will share that with you. And this is the case study on smallholder farmers' access to markets for high-value agriculture commodities in India. This is a case study that you will find that in the case study books. Students generally think about the country profile because these are not the students are from the same country, because they study case studies from different countries, and they get into the details of understanding the location and the geography, particularly the climate as it relates to agriculture. And what are the agriculture products that are grown in that country, and what are the natural, sometimes man-made calamities that these countries face, and including some political kind of situation that the countries are in, and details about population per growth rate, for example, labor force involved in agriculture and other industries, infrastructure that the country has in terms of the electricity, roads, and the information and communication technologies, and what is the education level of the men and women in the country. And this kind of information helps to put the policy issues in the context in which the country, the policy issues are debated at the country level. In terms of this particular case study, they also introduce some key terms and policy challenges to start with, because students should know this before they get into the debate and discussion. For example, the key definition of smallholder farmer. Well, in the context of India, a smallholder farmer is the one who has less than 2 hectares of land, for example. And that becomes really clear when we say, sometimes the instructor comes and say 1 hectare of land is something like a football field, soccer field, for example. So they kind of get an idea about what is this area that a farmer has. And of course, high value food commodities that they can grow, vegetables, poultry, fish products, fruit, milk, meat, and eggs. And what are the real policy challenges? For example, they identify key policy challenges. In this case, for example, demand is greatly increasing in India for high-value food commodities, partly because of the economic growth and the changing food patterns as well. But there are many barriers exist for smallholder farmers to enter into the production of high-value commodities because the land is so fragmented and they are connected to the markets, the market infrastructure is weak, and how are we going to benefit this increasing demand from the demand side? How are we going to use that demand to benefit the smallholder farmers who are still poor and malnourished, for example? And having said that policy challenge, and we bring in the issue of stakeholder debate, and who are the people who are going to be debating these issues, who are representing various stakeholder groups. For example, in this case, a representative from Government of India, producer groups, producer associations. It could be a farmer, smallholder farmers association, or large farmer, also depending on the commodities that we are talking about. Civil society organizations, international buyers and traders, supermarkets, retail markets, for example, agribusiness firms, and research institutions or academic institutions that are contributing to the research, for example. And some of the issues so that it can initiate the debate among the students. High-value commodities, for example, in 2003, high-value food commodity exports accounted for about 35% of the total agricultural exports. And that information gives a perspective for the debate. And what are the commodities that are constituting this kind of export, agricultural export? Fish commodities constitute about 50%, and fruits and vegetables 35%. And that contributes nearly half of agricultural income. I mean, that's important information for the debate. And significant female involvement is involved in the production of high-value commodities, and that brings a gender dimension to the debate as well. And of course, food processing is very important when you talk about high-value commodities, but it is grossly underdeveloped in India. And lacking investment is a serious issue. And you see the percentage of various levels of processing industry, and that's really compared to the world average, for example, very low in terms of the processing sector, but particularly when we talk about the perishable commodities. Agriculture in India is still state regulated. There are a lot of regulations going on in movement of commodities, and those relate to policy issues and institutional issues, that needs to be relaxed, and that's something that we talk about in terms of the debate as well. And also we bring in a conceptual framework in terms of reasons for smallholder exclusion from the markets. There are several reasons, but of course the cultural issues related to gender and caste, educational issues, government policies themselves becoming barriers for smallholders to participate. Infrastructure, of course, is a huge challenge, and all other factors coming together to reduce the market access for smallholder farmers. Given that, what is the really issue that we want to debate? One or two questions put on the table for the debate. And for example, what would be the advantages and disadvantages of various marketing arrangements? In this case, cooperatives, for example, which has been going on in India for quite some time. And producer associations, the new associations that are coming up for grapes, for example, mangoes, for new commodities, and how are we going to help them, and what are the advantages of that? And then the recent issue of contract farming, for example. And then the next question is what government policies and other conditions would be required for the success of these institutions? And what should we be thinking about in terms of policies, in terms of social, economic, political, and legal aspects of those policies? And again, we come up with some recommendations for debate, and that's open to debate and challenge the recommendations as well, because the presenter takes the form of a consultant who is working and in the country with the policymakers and presenting this. So institutional, for example, strengthen the court system. In terms of India, the judicial system is really weak in order to address the challenges faced by the contract farming, for example. The formation of new producer association and strengthening the current one, the regulatory system is again needs to be strengthening, building up of the capacity of the government to enforce contract. It's still a weak situation. So institutional issues we need to talk about. Policy issues in terms of investment in infrastructure, roads, electricity, and communication. And then the human capacity issues, investment in vocational schools, research institutions, training programs for smallholder farmers to get into high-value agriculture, and training the illiterate farmers to understand the contract, for example, and the, what goes on when they write a contract. So these are the kind of initial recommendations that's put on the table for students to think about and debate, and taking different roles of stakeholders. I think I'll stop there.